Very good, everybody. Let's get right to it. All right, now, come here. I want to show you something real quick. These are the official hot sheets, and we're doing this video again because it was blurry at first. These are the official hot sheets from the Social Security Administration's OIG, Office of Inspector General website. And what they do is go through those people who have received some form of benefits, whether they legally received them or didn't legally receive them from the Social Security Administration. Now, just to give you guys some basic things that you need to understand with this entire situation, I hope you get from this video essentially those types of individuals that the SSA is arresting. Now, when the SSA arrests a recipient of benefits, okay, whether it's legally receiving them or illegally receiving them, there are three main ways for them to prosecute the individual. There's administrative punishments, civil punishments, and criminal law punishments. So criminal level punishments. This one's about reducing or restricting the benefits you have. This one's about charging you extra money on top that you have to pay back. And then this one, the criminal, is about you going to jail and then coming out of jail and having to be in supervised release, which means they watch you. They keep an eye on you going forward. Okay. All right, let's go into this real quick. The first one we're going to be covering is essentially May 19th, 2025 release. So just recently, very recently. Two more defendants plead guilty in bank fraud and identity theft conspiracy, Albany, New York. This was a Kenny Bassi, age 36 of Brooklyn, New York, and Jermone Brooks, age 20 of Richmond, Virginia, pled guilty last week to their roles in a multi-million-dollar bank fraud conspiracy led by Oluwaseun Adekoya, age 39, a Nigerian citizen. Okay. So basically, there was a Nigerian citizen who had this massive fraud, situation where they got together a bunch of other people to mimic Social Security recipients and then steal their money. Not a good deal, a horrible thing. It's terrible. Not a good look for the Nigerian people or the Nigerian citizen who caused this entire situation. United States Attorney John A. Sarcone III and Craig L. Tremaroli, I'm not really sure how to pronounce that, special agent in charge of the Albany Field Office of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, made the announcement on May 19, 2025 through this OIG sheet. Now, Bassi and Brooks admitted that they were members of a conspiracy to defraud financial institutions all over the country by obtaining the personal identification information of individuals and using lower-level workers to impersonate the identity theft victims to conduct fraudulent banking transactions in their names. Bassi and Brooks supervised and oversaw lower-level co-conspirators who withdrew hundreds of thousands of dollars from identity theft victims in the Northern District of New York and all over the country. So put another way, basically, if you were working and they were to try and copy you, they would steal your information, they would steal your passwords, they would, basically go into and do business with the banks you were doing, and then go ahead and begin changing over the information so that they could withdraw essentially money against people who were real Social Security recipients or those paying FICA taxes. Bassi admitted to conspiring with alleged ringleader Adekoya to launder bank fraud proceeds in transactions designed to conceal and disguise the nature, location, source, ownership, and control of the proceeds, and to use bank fraud proceeds to reinvest in the ongoing conspiracy. Now, Adekoya, the Nigerian citizen who masterminded this whole thing, the alleged ringleader of the conspiracy, faces trial beginning June 9th, 2025, so around the corner. And you'll probably see Trump, showing pictures of this individual to show like how the fraud actually exists. We're claiming there's no fraud in the Social Security Administration. There's no fraud going on with it. Rare, you get some flat earthers out there, but the bottom line is, every week, we go through people committing fraud against Social Security recipients, receiving Social Security benefits, whether it's legally receiving them or not. Every week we do it. I do these videos to kind of instruct people and show people, hey, when they say there's not really that much fraud going on against the SSA, there really is. There really is quite a bit of fraud going in and going on against the Social Security Administration. And before Trump's second term, before Elon, before DOGE, OIG was working on catching these people and doing a good job, including during Biden's presidency. Okay. All right. Adekoya, the alleged ringleader of the conspiracy, faces trial beginning June 9th, 2025, before the United States District Judge May A. D'Agostino on a second superseding indictment charging him with one count of conspiracy to commit bank fraud and one count of money laundering conspiracy and 9 counts of aggravated identity theft. The charges against Adekoya in the second superseding indictment are merely accusations. He is presumed innocent until and unless proven guilty. Although, we know this might be going in a particular direction. They put their legal waiver in there for you. Okay. Quote, and then there was one. United States Attorney Sarcone said, quote, we look forward to trial. We appreciate the efforts of the FBI and many other law enforcement partners across the country in uncovering this scheme. FBI Special Agent in Charge Tremoroli, I'm not even sure how to pronounce that, stated the FBI takes very seriously our responsibility to investigate and pursue those who commit fraud for personal gain. Accountable those who use illegal means and criminal behaviors to take advantage of others. So, in other words, the FBI is catching people committing fraud. That's a good thing. We like this. Real quick shout out to Princess Diana. Thank you for the $2 donation. That's absolutely amazing. She donated on the first video, but the first video was super blurry, so we had to restart it. That's okay though. Now, with that said, please remember to hit that like button. Please remember to go ahead and subscribe. It's incredibly important to support the channel because it helps me continue to make these videos to educate you guys on essentially what the future and current status of the Social Security Administration is. The prosecution is the result of an ongoing investigation led by the U.S. Attorney's Office and the FBI Albany Field Office, which began after the May 2022 arrest of David Danignan, a.k.a. Bamako Lanian, a.k.a. David Enfield, a.k.a. Africa, age 60, of Brooklyn, New York. Geisha Kennedy, age 46, of Brooklyn, and Victor Barrera, age 64, of the Bronx, New York, by the Cohost Police Department after the trio traveled to the capital region to commit bank fraud. According to documents previously filed in the case, the investigation has uncovered over $2 million in fraudulent transactions to date. 13 defendants have pled guilty and forfeited hundreds of thousands of dollars in proceeds, luxury apparel, and jewelry. Again, 13 defendants have pled guilty and forfeited hundreds of thousands of dollars in proceeds, luxury apparel, and jewelry. So basically, you might have seen one of these individuals walking around in a nice car, nice jewelry, nice clothing, right? When they didn't actually have a job, what they had was a fraud job, and they were frauding Social Security recipients and people paying FICA taxes. At the sentencing later this year, Bossie and Brooks face a maximum term of 30 years incarceration for the bank fraud conspiracy. Bossie faces a maximum term of 20 years incarceration for the money laundering conspiracy. And Bossie and Brooks face a mandatory consecutive term of 2 years incarceration for their convictions of aggravated identity theft. You know, because I don't know, if you're stealing somebody's identity, you willfully, you intentionally do it. I don't really feel like 2 years is an appropriate length of time. I feel, 5 to 10. I feel 5 to 10, maybe not 15. 5 to maybe 15. Maybe, I don't know. You let me know. What do you guys think? Do you think if somebody steals your identity, they catch them, they stole money from you, do you think, 5 to 10? Do you think 15? Do you think it should be more like you think it should be more like, if they steal this much money, they get 15? I don't know. You let me know. Also, Candy Wolf, howdy. With that said, let's keep rocking and rolling through this thing. All right. So 2 years incarceration for the convictions of aggravated identity theft. I think that's too low, but you make your own choice. The defendants will be ordered to pay restitution and will also face a term of post-incarceration supervised release of up to 5 years. It's just, I don't know. If you steal somebody's identity, look, you know what I mean? There's different versions of that. Some people, they'll give you your card and they'll say, go buy this. And then you buy it and they're like, I didn't tell you to buy it. That's, you know what I mean? Hey, you know what I mean? But then there's the other side where somebody goes to a bank, pretends to be you and withdraws a bunch of money. That's different. You know what I mean? That's different. FBI Albany is investigating the case with assistance from the FBI field office in New York, Newark, Richmond, and resident agencies in Westchester, New York, Brooklyn, Queens, New York, and Garrett Mountain, New Jersey, and Fort Walton Beach, Florida. Man, there's tons of, there's a whole paragraph on who's assisting with this entire thing. Assistant United States Attorneys Benjamin S. Clark, Matthew M. Paulbeck, and Joshua R. Rosenthal are prosecuting this case. What they found was a ring of people who essentially were committing fraud by stealing the identities of people who are real, who are receiving benefits, who are working, paying FICA taxes. And as a result of that, they basically ultimately didn't get away with the fraud. Okay. They ultimately found them, the Nigerian, kingpin of this thing called Africa, basically got caught ultimately. But I guess my question to you is, how are they so successful with stealing the identities of people that, essentially would, give them enough access to get bank accounts? I guess my point is, our social security numbers are just, they're just not safe anymore. They're not safe. 2023, I've said it many times, December, 270 plus million social security numbers, names, date of births, all that stuff ended up on the dark web. You have to understand, like we have to have a better system in place than these social security numbers, because it's just one of those things where at the end of the day, to be very, very clear, we need a better system that protects our recipients. Now, the next person on this list, Maryland man pleads guilty to wire fraud for defrauding United States Department of Veterans Affairs and Social Security Administration. Woo! We got a live one here. Okay, let's check it out real quick. May 15th, 2025, Maryland Marvin DeBoulet, 51 of Catonsville, Maryland, pled guilty to wire fraud in connection with a scheme to fraudulently obtain Veterans Affairs and Social Security Administration benefits in federal court. Kelly O'Hays, U.S. Attorney for the District of Maryland, announced the plea with Special Agent in Charge Nate Landkramer, U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, Office of the Inspector General, VA OIG, and Special Agent in Charge Colleen Lawler, Social Security Administration, Office of the Inspector General, SSA OIG. So according to the guilty plea, DeBoulet enlisted in the U.S. Army in February. Okay, so he got in February 2010. All right, so we're talking 15 years ago, and officially entered duty for basic training on May 5th, 2010. Okay, so Febby gets in May 5th, basic training, yada yada. Then on December 2nd, 2010, okay, so the end of the year, DeBoulet went absent without official leave of duty. He went AWOL from the military. Okay. Now, I want to do a real quick thank you to Cyber Katie, who did a 1-month membership, which is absolutely amazing. Says, hello, hope everyone is having a good evening. Excellent. Hope everyone as well is having a good evening. Okay, so on June 6th, 2011, so, a little bit past when he started, a little bit more than a year when he originally started to go to the military, DeBoulet was charged by summary court-martial with a period of desertion ending on March 22nd, 2011. The U.S. Army formally discharged DeBoulet under conditions other than honorable. On November 18th, 2011, prior to and after 2010, DeBoulet never served in any branch of the U.S. military. Okay, so basically, guy goes in, starts basic training, gets to the end of the year, skips out, says, not for me, doesn't show up, he goes AWOL. In June 2012, DeBoulet sought care for a U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs Medical Center in Loma Linda, California. On his application for treatment, DeBoulet indicated that he was discharged honorably and checked a box stating that he was a Purple Heart recipient. Additionally, DeBoulet submitted documents falsely claiming that he served in the U.S. Marine Corps and suffered combat-related mental and physical injuries during military service from 2003 and 2005. DeBoulet also falsely stated that he was the sole survivor of a Humvee bombing in Kosovo. As a result of DeBoulet's misrepresentations, the VA provided DeBoulet with medical care and associated costs that he was not entitled to. Then in October of 2014, DeBoulet sought SSA benefits in Hagerstown, Maryland. DeBoulet again provided false information, specifically that he served in the U.S. Marine Corps from February 26, 1994 until November 23rd of 2005. So this guy's a habitual liar. He's a bullshit artist. Based on its rules, as of June 2012, the SSA determined DeBoulet was disabled based on information he provided and a pending claim that he referred with a VA medical facility. So basically, he used the VA spiel to go ahead and assist with getting an SSA approval. He had some documents from the VA medical facility showing, basically that he was treated, and he used those with the SSA to try and, get a win for the benefits as of June 2012. Now remember, 2012, 2013, it was very easy back then to be found disabled. 2014, 15, 16, that's where things really started to change. 2017, they changed massively the rules under Commissioner Saul, which was, of course, President Trump's pick. And then basically going from there forward, it's been a lot more difficult. The days of just be a disabled person you are and you'll get benefits. Those days are over. It is rare now that you will come across somebody who goes, as long as I just am the disabled person I claim, everything's going to be fine. As long as you're really disabled, you'll be fine. Long are the days now, they are gone, where you run into those people. Those people really don't exist that much anymore. Most people know it's significantly harder to be found disabled nowadays. People found disabled 15 years ago, 20 years ago, many of those individuals would not be found disabled nowadays. So like what I always say to those people is make sure you protect your benefits. Lots of medical treatment, crisis medical treatment, stay on top of those medications, outline symptoms, signs, and also medication side effects. Just do it, because the culture of the SSA changes to become more difficult every single year. As a result of its findings, the SSA awarded Debelet and his son benefits. Debelet fraudulently received $143,128.27 in benefit funds that he was not entitled to. Debelet faces a maximum sentence of 20 years for wire fraud. Actual sentences for federal crimes are typically less than the maximum penalties. A federal district court judge determines sentencing after the considering the U.S. sentencing guidelines and other statutory factors. Okay. U.S. Attorney Hayes commended the VA OIG and SSA OIG for their work in the investigation. Ms. Hayes also thanked Special Assistant U.S. Attorney Cartisha Dixon, who is prosecuting the case. Bottom line is that they caught somebody who lied about when he served. He used this to get additional benefits, including the SSA benefits. And the bottom line is they do catch him. They do catch him. But again, this was way before Elon, way before DOGE. This was OIG. But still, they didn't catch to prosecute until, just to give you the specific time here, May 15th, 2025. In May 15th, 2025 is when they caught and prosecuted this guy and went through the whole detail of putting him into a orange jumpsuit to be correct, situation. Now, there is an additional one I want to go through with you guys real quick so you understand how they go ahead and snooker benefits away from you. A Honduran man pleads guilty to aggravated identity theft and related fraud charges. Let's go through this real quick. This was May 15th, 2025 from the SSA OIG page. Tampa, Florida. United States Attorney Gregory W. Kehoe announces that Eliezer Aurelio Gomez Zaleja, 34, Honduras, has pled guilty to aggravated identity theft, false representation of a social security number, and false claims of United States citizenship for employment purposes. Gomez Zaleja faces a maximum term of 2 years up to 12 years in federal prison. A sentencing date has not been set yet. According to the court documents, Archer Western de Moya Group Joint Venture 2 is enrolled in E-Verify, a web-based system through which employers will electronically confirm the employment eligibility of their employees. E-Verify is administered by the Social Security Administration and U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. The SSA and USCIS verify the submitted information against the records of actual persons who are authorized to work in the United States. E-Verify is a voluntary program for employers and requires documents such as a social security number and photo identification of a prospective employer. Now, from at least 2021 through September 2022, Gomez Zaleja used another person's means of identification to defeat the E-Verify system and to commit the felony offenses of misuse of social security number and false claim of United States citizenship for employment purposes. So, just very clear, he snookered essentially somebody else's information, used it to get past E-Verify and, work in the country, get some money, etc. Gomez Zaleja was encountered by law enforcement at the joint venture on September 22nd, 2022, which is ironic because during that time, Biden was mass allowing immigrants to come in, and then OIG was tasked with basically finding the ones that were committing fraud and arrest them during his tenure. He was working there under the stolen identity. So just to go through again, Gomez Zaleja was encountered by law enforcement at the joint venture on September 22nd, 2022. He was working there under the stolen identity. That night, another individual to the joint venture, also working under a stolen identity, Juan Molina Salas, struck and killed Pinellas County Sheriff's Deputy Michael Hartwick at the joint venture's construction site in Pinellas County. During the investigation into Deputy Hartwick's death, Gomez Zaleja gave a false name, the stolen identity, to law enforcement and was arrested on state charges of accessory after the fact. So this is all due to essentially the death of a law enforcement officer. And, it's a very sad thing. This is an immigrant who, illegal immigrant because of the situation, stole identities, used them, driving, obviously driver's license was likely through that system as well, and ultimately ran into Deputy Hartwick's car, and that led to essentially, struck and killed Pinellas County Sheriff's Deputy Michael Hartwick. So it was a terrible situation where they killed essentially, Deputy Hartwick. This case was investigated by Homeland Security Investigations, the Department of Transportation, Office of Inspector General, the Social Security Administration, Office of the Inspector General in the United States, Border Patrol, the Department of Labor, Office of Inspector General, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. It is being prosecuted by Assistant United States Attorney Christopher F. Murray. Now, the point that I want you to learn from this one, okay, just to be very clear about this situation, is that look, accidents happen, but they would not have happened if they did not have an individual in this country illegally stealing somebody's identity and basically working under that identity illegally. Now, some people say we need immigrants. I agree with you, but use the damn door, because it is absolutely ridiculous how many individuals we have in this country. They're not supposed to be in this country. And some people say, well, that's just part of the gig. It is, until they strike a law enforcement officer with their car. It is to go ahead and steal more money out of the Social Security. The part of the problem that you kind of have to have an understanding of this situation is that at the end of the day, you can be supportive of immigrants. You just should be aware, right, that there's a lot of funny business going on, and that we need to have a better, system for filtering through individuals that are going to be helpful, work hard, pay into the system, that are immigrants. Because remember, at the end of the day, we don't have a lot of space in this country at $36 trillion in debt for individuals that are going to come to this country and then immediately go into welfare, immediately go into Social Security, SSI benefits, stuff like that. We just, that are refugees, asylum seekers, people who are entrants, etc., who have been trafficked, stuff like that. We don't have the money to pay for these people. We are not, as a country, financially stable. Some people say we'll never be able to pay off 36 trillion. Maybe, you know what I mean? Who knows how long America will last as America? You know what I mean? Who knows? But to be fair, some people say we have to outgrow the problem, outgrow the 36 trillion in debt based off of what we can earn, based off of what we can achieve. Again, another difficult thing. I guess from my perspective, I guess the thing that you need to understand from where I'm coming from, we are not a country right now that can afford to house, to basically, clothe, to feed lots and lots of immigrants that are here without the capacity to work. I mean, we're coming from an administration where literally they had gangs set up in different cities that were just fresh immigrants flown in from other countries. Really, really incredible things. And the weird thing is the news does not report it. But if you go read the court documents on who they arrested, you will see how unbelievably bleeping crap these legacy news channels actually are. You will be amazed. CNN, MSNBC, they do not report things that are going to hurt, right, their particular spin. And Fox has their own problems too, but objectivity, the center view, the independent view, legacy news doesn't do that. That's not their game. They don't care. It's not their deal. It ain't it. Okay. Now we got one more here. I just want to remind you guys to like and subscribe. Please consider that. That helps the channel keep growing. East Point, Georgia man sentenced to federal prison for CARES Act unemployment fraud. So this is Montgomery, Alabama. On May 13th, 2025, federal judge sentenced Brandon Cody Carter, 36, of East Point, Georgia, to 78 months in prison for his role in a scheme to file fraudulent unemployment insurance claims under the expanded coronavirus aid, relief, and economic securities CARES Act. Now, real quick, 7 8 months, that's years and years and years, right? 12 months to a year, that's years and years and years. So we got felony level, activity here on behalf of this gentleman. The announcement was made by acting United States Attorney Kevin Davidson and Special Agent in Charge Matthew Broadhurst of the Southeast Region, U.S. Department of Labor, Office of Inspector General, following his 6.5-year term of imprisonment. Carter will serve 3 years on supervised release. Federal inmates are not eligible for parole. Beginning in March 2020, the CARES Act, the family's first Coronavirus Response Act, expanded access to unemployment insurance programs to address the economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. In Alabama, eligible individuals could receive enhanced benefits through the Alabama Department of Labor. Because remember, sometimes, in order to live someplace, you have to give them extra money. A lot of states will have supplemental benefits for, moms that have a bunch of kids where the dad isn't in the picture, the dad's not paying, any child support or whatever. That's the one big thing a lot of workers get kind of pissed about, is that some women are able to go ahead and have lots and lots of kids through some individual, and then the county, the state, the feds have to support that individual and all the kids they had, whereas the working class, we look at it and we're just like, how the hell are we going to afford kids? Like, they tax us so much, we can't afford to have kids. So that's one of the things that, like, I've been seeing a lot of younger people right now. They're starting to like wake up to the idea that, like, hey, what the hell? These kids are expensive and I can't have them because money's going to pay taxes to other people who have kids and yeah. It is what it is. There's nothing in the Constitution that's ever going to limit the ability of people to have kids. Now, if you stopped financially supporting moms that had kids, you would end up with a lot of worse situations of a lot of crime, a lot of problems, etc., in the community. But there's nothing in the Constitution that's going to limit the ability of people to have kids, even when it infringes on your right to have a happy, wonderful life. I know that there's a provision on that, but the reality is, they're just going to keep taxing you to pay for other people's kids. It is what it is. You're never getting around that unless there's like a very big change in how people actually view this stuff. Now, according to court documents and Carter's plea agreement between March and September 2020, he conspired with others to submit fraudulent unemployment insurance claims to ADOL. In doing so, Carter falsely claimed Alabama residency and used multiple aliases, submitting fictitious names, birth dates, social security numbers, and other fraudulent information. As a result of these false representations, ADOL, which remember was that Alabama Department of Labor, issued substantial payments to Carter through unemployment insurance, debit cards, and direct deposits. So, classic fraud. Dude was frauding, the government left and right. On January 23rd, 2025, okay, so we're talking like, beginning of Trump's presidency, Carter pled guilty to conspiracy to commit mail fraud. During the plea hearing, he admitted his actions led ADOL to disperse $818,304 in fraudulent claims. A restitution amount will be determined at a later date, but it's probably going to be bigger than that, okay? But $818,304, what it blows me away about that is like how much money they could get quickly out of the government. Like, that's a huge amount of money. That's more money than the firm makes in a year. That's much more than the firm makes in a year. So it blows my mind when they're able to fraud the government out of that amount in such a short period. You know what I mean? After guys like me are breaking our butts in the middle of the night to go ahead and make everything work. So it's just, it's amazing. It really is. Quote, this sentence reflects the seriousness of defrauding programs intended to help those truly in need during a national crisis, said acting United States Attorney Davidson. Quote, Brendan Carter exploited the system designed to provide relief to families facing unprecedented hardship. Our office remains committed to working with our law enforcement partners to uncover and prosecute pandemic-related fraud wherever it occurs. Quote, Brendan Carter defrauded the Alabama Department of Labor by filing numerous false claims for unemployment insurance benefits to which he was not entitled. He enriched himself by diverting taxpayer funds from a program that was intended to assist unemployed American workers who lost their jobs due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Quote, stated Special Agent in Charge Broadhurst, we will continue to work closely with the U.S. Attorney's Office and our other law enforcement partners to protect the integrity of these critical benefit programs. The U.S. Department of Labor, Office of Inspector General, Alabama Department of Labor, U.S. Postal Inspection Service, U.S. Secret Service, U.S. Social Security Administration, Office of Inspector, among other people, worked on this claim. Now, with that said, these are the individuals who were frauding the government. And also, to be fair, Candy Wolf, thank you, very cool. Who were, I see Princess Diana there, and Cyber Katie, and Kosherish, howdy, Kosherish. So the point that I'm getting at here is that I do these videos to show you who are the people who are usually getting criminal charges brought against them. Now, do people get criminal charges for much lighter stuff? Like, they've got pictures of you boating and you're supposed to be receiving disability benefits, but you're out there having a good time. Yes, they do criminal charges against those individuals too, but it's much less than these. They don't tend to have those people hop up on the OIG sheets, but they will pop up on our side when we look up the legal cases. Maybe Justia, maybe one of these other legal websites, Westlaw, Case Law, whatever. So as a result, I tend to tell you guys, these are the big ticket frauders. They usually get to around $1 million in fraud, stuff like that. Could be less, could be more. The point I'm getting to here is the SSA is tightening up. They're tightening up on Social Security fraud, specifically with Social Security numbers. They're tightening up on who is actually disabled, all that kinds of stuff. Now, I will say this. A lot of people found disabled, 15 years ago, 12 years ago, even some 10 years ago. The world that they live in, look, it's one of those things where you need to make sure you upkeep your consistent medical treatment. Having the argument that there's no cure for your impairment is a one-way ticket, usually, to getting a review and losing your benefits. Sometimes that ends up being where you owe the SSA back a certain amount of money because, they claim that, you had improvement, you didn't report improvements, you you said things on a document that weren't exactly true, and off we go. You know what I mean? So one of the things I just need you to understand, one of the things I hope you understand, is that at the end of the day, this is a situation where most people totally fine. However, this is a situation where at the end of the day, I want to make this very clear. At the end of the day, the bottom line is that you need to upkeep your benefits and protect the information related to your Social Security number, your Social Security benefits. Because at the end of the day, it's just one of those things where, for some reason, these immigrants, especially, they get your Social Security number, they get your other information, they open up bank loans against you, they open up, COVID loans against you. It's just one of those things where it's rampant. It's a problem. OIG is doing their job. They're doing a good job. We want to keep pushing them, and hopefully they will continue to collect these individuals who are massively taking money out of the trust funds, which just shortens the length of time that you actually get to collect your full amount of retirement benefits. All right, with that said, Attorney Walter Hnot, please remember to like and subscribe. Head over to Google, type in Disability Resolution Law Firm or Disability Resolution Florida. Throw some stars up there if you want. I always love waking up to those stars. It's a big thing for me. With that said, I go live on Mondays and Thursdays. I couldn't yesterday because I was just tired. And then basically tonight we will be answering questions for free to the general public. With that also said, there's a private contract, $250 per hour private session where you can hire me for 1 hour where I go through your particular legal situation. All right. I hope all is well. I will catch you a little bit later and we'll go from there. Attorney Walter Hnot, and I will see you at the next video shortly. Thank you so much. Have fun. We'll go from there. Thank you. Bye.